So a package came for me the other day, and inside of it was this book. But it wasn't just any book. It was the highly anticipated official Stardew Valley cookbook. Inside are 50 recipes that are based on in-game meals and food, allowing us to cook and eat all our homegrown and fresh-caught ingredients in real life. For this video, I thought we'd try a springtime recipe, the Farmer's Lunch. In the game, the Farmer's Lunch will provide you with 200 energy and 90 health. It'll also provide you with +3 farming for 5.5 minutes. That means all the crops you harvest while the buff is active are going to be of higher quality. And that's a pretty good deal for a hungry farmer. Of all the townspeople in Stardew Valley, this dish is only loved by Marnie, who gets her own spotlight on the first page in the recipe. But as it turns out, Marnie's not the only one who loves the dish. A Reddit user named Queen of Sauce tried their hand at making the Farmer's Lunch, and so did one other user, both years before the official cookbook was announced. Speaking of which, I hope you're hungry, because we're about to get cooking. Huge thank you to Random House Worlds for the free copy of the official Stardew Valley cookbook on sale May 14th, and equally huge thanks to the Yeti for including this awesome Stardew Valley merchandise shipped from hometown Chicagoland in the package. Just tell me that these character stickers don't look so precious, and I absolutely adore the official Stardew Valley soundtrack on a cassette tape. And wow, I found a Stardrop. My mind is filled with thoughts of tapping the like button on this video and pressing the subscribe button with the bell icon. I feel like my maximum energy level just increased. The Farmer's Lunch recipe starts off with a message from the Queen of Sauce herself. The official Farmer's Lunch recipe calls for 3 large eggs, 2 teaspoons of whole milk, 1 tablespoon of unsalted butter, kosher salt and freshly ground black pepper, half a cup of grated Gruyere cheese, 2 heaping tablespoons of coarsely chopped fresh spring herbs, 1 pound of fresh parsnips trimmed, peeled, and cut into half-inch pieces, 2 tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil, 2 teaspoons of maple syrup, and 1.5 cups of lightly packed baby arugula. We'll be using a cast iron skillet with a tight-fitting lid to cook the omelet, and just a baking sheet with some parchment paper for the roasted parsnips with arugula. Speaking of those parsnips, we're actually going to start with those first since they take a little while to bake. I don't cook as much as I probably should, so while both the tools and techniques I used to make this dish might be a bit unorthodox and not the gold standard, I did what I could with what I had, and that's what starting your new life in Stardew Valley is all about. After the parsnip skin is peeled off and they're rinsed under some tap water to get rid of any remaining bits of soil, I chopped them in half and then cut them the long way. After that, I lined them up long way and cut them in half-inch pieces. Once this was done, I poured them into a bowl to make sure we had our 1 pound. Prior to making this dish, I've never cooked or even eaten parsnips before. While I was chopping them up, they had this sweet, almost citrusy aroma to them. Next, inside of a large bowl, you'll want to combine the parsnips, olive oil, maple syrup, and a large pinch of salt and pepper. While I was shopping for ingredients, I was keeping an eye out for anything that was locally produced, and it turns out the maple syrup was. Didn't know we had people making and packing maple syrup around these parts. After tossing the parsnips around in the bowl and making sure all of them were evenly coated, I spread them out in an even layer on a baking sheet. My god, this was satisfying. Next, roast those parsnips until they are tender and browned in spots, 35 to 40 minutes, inside an oven preheated to 375 degrees Fahrenheit. Do make sure to stir them occasionally as well. And now we're going to get our 1.5 cups of baby arugula prepared. In the bowl that's used for the parsnips, you'll want to gently toss the arugula with any residual oil and seasoning in there. After this, stir the arugula into the parsnips on the baking sheet, and then stir gently until some of the arugula begins to wilt. Next, it's time to make the omelet. You'll want to carefully separate the egg whites and the egg yolks into 2 bowls, a large one for the whites and a medium one for the yolks. While working on the second egg, I got a tiny bit of yolk in the egg whites bowl, but that's okay. The dish isn't ruined by any stretch, and life is full of little mistakes. You run your self-esteem dry early in life if you beat yourself up over the little things. Beat. Like beating an egg. It's kinda punny. Anyway, I have to admit, while it's been a very long time, I do actually have a bit of experience in the art of making omelets. My late Uncle Don taught me his special method many years ago, and though it's been some time, I was hoping some of his pristine omelet crafting prowess still resided within me somewhere. With that touch of confidence leading me forward, I used an electric hand mixer on medium-high speed to whip the egg whites until they tripled in size and formed medium-stiff peaks. That took about 2 minutes time. After this, we will drizzle our 2 teaspoons of whole milk over the egg yolks, and then use the same mixer to whip the yolks until the mixture is slightly airy and a pale yellow, which also takes about 2 minutes. Next, gently fold the yolks into the whites until just combined. While we heat up our medium cast iron skillet over a medium-low heat, I chopped up these here chives, which also happen to be locally grown. God, I love buying local. After rinsing them off, I lined up the stalks and made sure these were nice and minced to be part of the fresh spring herbs that'll go inside of our omelet. And even though I bought them for this recipe, I decided against using the dried parsley because I wasn't sure of its freshness, and I really wanted to get the best tasting farmer's lunch as I could. I decided to stick with mixing in this German vegetable seasoning. The reviews on it were just so good, I knew I had to at least put a pinch in there. And finally, we need half a cup of shredded Gruyere cheese. I know this cheese grater looks like something straight out of the Great Depression, but it worked great. Now that our skillet is nice and warm, we're gonna add the tablespoon of butter to the warm skillet and swirl it around to coat the bottom and up against the sides as well. Next, we'll carefully pour the egg mixture into the skillet and cook until the bottom of the eggs has set, which will take about 6 to 8 minutes. That is one fluffy looking egg. Next, we'll cover the skillet with a lid and cook until the top has mostly set, only about 4 to 6 minutes. I don't really know why my instinct immediately directed me to slap the eggs like the backside of a misbehaving pupil of a one-room schoolhouse from the 1900s, but anywho, with the eggs set around the edges but still slightly wet and foamy on top, it's time to season them with salt and pepper and sprinkle them with the cheese. Cover the skillet again and cook until the cheese is melted. Should only take about 2 minutes. Whoa. Good Lord above. Now it's time for our 2 heaping tablespoons of fresh spring herbs. On go our chives and some dashes of our German herb seasoning. Using a rubber spatula, we loosen the sides of the omelet and then fold the omelet over. What an eggy glory. And would you look at that? We cooked a farmer's lunch, 1 part omelet, and a few heaping spoonfuls of roasted parsnips and arugula. Personally, I like my eggs with some mild hot sauce on the side. Now, I don't mean to toot my own horn here, but gotta say, I got it pretty close. Now, of course, the real test is in how it tastes, so we'll get a good chunk of that omelet on the fork along with some parsnips and arugula, and dang, that flavor is something. Thank you so much for watching. Leave a comment down below and let me know what you'd be most excited to cook from Stardew Valley, and happy farming.